Hello, welcome to my studio. I've had lots and lots of messages asking about what guitars I use and what equipment I use. So today I thought I'd do a little rig rundown. I can show you my guitars, my amp, pedal board, and maybe demonstrate some of the sounds that I use for live and recording. Okay, let's start by taking a look at the power amp. It's a Mesa Boogie 50/50 stereo power amp. 50 watt side, 6L6s all valve. That runs through two Palmer 1x12 speaker cabs. They're loaded with vintage Celestion 30s. The preamp is the Mesa Boogie Tri-Axis. The effects I use are TC Electronics, and the top two racks for my in-ear monitoring, wireless system, and a stereo graphic EQ. Now, for most of the tours and shows I do, there's silent stage, which means basically we've got no speaker cabs on stage at all. So I used these Palmer speaker simulators. I've got two of them because my rack and system run in stereo. The guitar signal goes out to the back of my rack, into the Palmer speaker simulators, and then straight to front of house. Okay, onto my pedal board. The signal chain is as follows. My guitar goes straight into the Ernie Ball volume pedal. The main out of the volume pedal goes to the Xotic SP compressor. That's left on permanently at a moderate setting. Out of the compressor into a Jim Dunlop Crybaby wah pedal, and out of the wah pedal into a Seymour Duncan pickup booster pedal. The pickup booster pedal I use as a bit of a problem solver. When I switch to a guitar with single coil pickups, obviously the output is lower than humbuckers on my normal guitars. So to save me reprogramming patches, I just put the boost pedal on with a boost of about 6 dB, and that brings the volume back up to the same as my guitars with humbuckers in. And then the guitar signal goes from the boost pedal straight into the rack. Also on the pedal board, I've got the Boss chromatic tuner. That's in the tuner out of the volume pedal, and that's always left on. That's got a side chain which also feeds the Banshee talk box. So my main guitar signal doesn't go through the talk box. It's like a side chain. The main thing on the board is the foot controller for the rack, which is just a standard MIDI Roland FC200 foot controller. That accesses all my pre-programmed patches on the rack, and the pedal on that changes parameters on the Tri-Axis in real time, so input gains, master volume out, or EQ settings. The only other thing I got on my board is an acoustic preamp and a DI, which is a separate chain altogether. My acoustic guitar will plug into that, and that will go straight to front of house. Okay, let me tell you about the main guitars I use. The PRS Swamp Ash Specials. Now these are the earlier model, the early 2000, late 90s, early 2000 models. They don't make this particular model anymore. I've got two exactly the same, which I call the twins, number 1 and number 2. The one in the middle is number 1. That's the guitar I tend to use the most. It feels like a Strat. It's a bolt-on neck. It's got the same pickup configuration as a Les Paul. Now I've always loved the sound of a Les Paul, but I don't particularly find them comfortable to play. So this PRS Swamp Ash Special is like two guitars in one for me. It's got two humbuckers and a three-way switch, so exactly the same setup as a Les Paul. But if you pull the tone control, that activates the middle pickup, which is a Seymour Duncan vintage rails, and effectively turns the humbuckers into single coils, so therefore you get your Strat type sound. Those two guitars are the ones that I use mainly. I have got other guitars. The red PRS there is an old EG model, I think it's called. I've used that on lots and lots of tours. Slightly more Stratty sounding than the Swamp Ash Specials. And a couple of my other guitars I've got in the rack there. I've got a couple of Strats, US Strats. One is set up for slide in open E tuning, I think, at the moment. An old Telly, which is set up for slide, resonator guitar, and the first Strat, the Creamy Strat, is one that I use a lot for recording. It's got the Texas Special pickups in that, the Fender Texas Specials, which are hotter overwhelmed pickups than your standard USA pickups. And there I've got my acoustic guitar, which is my Takamine EN40C. It's an electroacoustic, so for live I plug in and go straight DI to front of house. For recording I tend to put a microphone in front of it and plug it in and get a blend of the two. Okay, let me get started with my clean sound. This is pretty dry. It's just got a little bit of reverb and a tiny bit of delay on. Next is my wetter clean sound. This has got some stereo chorus on, more reverb and more delay. Okay, this is another clean patch with phaser on it, a modulation type effect. It's got some reverb, delay and obviously phaser. This is a clean tremolo patch, so it's got a tremolo effect on it with some reverb and delay. This is a delay patch. I use this for like another brick in the wall. It's got a delay time, stereo delay of about 420 milliseconds, along with some reverb and a tiny bit of stereo chorus. This is my more overdriven pushed sound. It's pretty dry. Again, it's just got a little bit of reverb and a little bit of delay on it. Okay, this one is my straight ahead distorted overdriven sound. Again, quite dry, just a little bit of reverb and delay. This is my wetter distorted sound, so it's got stereo chorus, reverb and delay on it, so it sounds more processed. This is my overdriven tremolo patch. I tend to use this for slide guitar. It's obviously got tremolo effect on, delay and reverb. This is my first solo patch. This is slightly overdriven pushed sound. Again, this is quite dry, just some reverb and a tiny bit of delay. This next solo patch is slightly more overdriven with some reverb and delay. This next patch is my wetter solo patch, stereo chorus, more reverb and delay. Again, this gives you that more processed 80s sort of guitar sound. This next solo patch has got a phaser effect on it, so it's still got reverb and delay, but it's got the phaser modulation effect as well.